think if I had a message, my message would be that we are stronger together rather than acting separately. And that's my ringtone, so sorry. I'll put it off. So let me introduce Bonnie Gordon, who is also everybody in the room is a co-organizer, actually. We're sort of doing this. So my slides are going to come before yours, okay? Okay. And Bonnie, and so what we thought we would do is have anybody who feels the need to come up here and represent a group or some activity that's going on. We know we have some petition circulators in the room also. And so before I get into this brief PowerPoint presentation that I wanted to give, I'm a professor at Case. I'm sort of a numbers person. And so I was looking over some of our from the election results from 2016, which I think will help us understand where we've been and perhaps where we're going. But before that, anybody right now who has a message to the group, if you want to come up here and just take the mic for a moment, and we'll take care of that business first while we all are attentive, and then we'll get to the PowerPoint presentation. So Bonnie, did you want to just say something like in general interest?
Yes, welcome. I'm so glad you all came. We've got somebody who's talking about the petitions. How many of you are petition circulators? Okay, that just to get a sense of the room. How many of you know what we're talking about when we talk about petitions? Almost everybody. Okay, so now Sue, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sue Dyke, and I am the East Side Petition Coordinator for the League of Women Voters for the effort to end gerrymandering in Ohio. So most of you know what that is. League of Women Voters will take your petitions if you need them. We have staging locations throughout the East Side. I don't know if you've heard, but the new soft date for the end of the drive, it's the soft date, is September 1. So we have the rest of the summer to keep going. We're hoping that will get us the needed 600,000 signatures in the state of Ohio. We don't really know where we are right now because we have a lot of petitions that are out. So if you have a petition, you're going away on vacation, go ahead and get that in before you go. So we have people starting to do the verification of signatures. That's also a volunteer opportunity if you want to get 15 minutes of online training. There's also a number of Facebook pages for fair districts, Cleveland East. I have a little blue handout here if you want to get them. Could really use some followers. That's where we're sharing information about places to go, so we can get some sort of a coordinated effort on the east side, so we don't have 6 people showing up to wait over Wednesday and no one showing up to the Shaker Farmers Market. Although neither of those would probably happen. That's just the type of thing that can sometimes happen. I can try to answer any questions that you may have, anything that you may have found. Do you have a question?
If we have a choice of where we're going to drive to on a Saturday or Sunday to get signatures, are we not better off going to Lake County?
Well, it's funny. They do have a need for people to help out in Lake County. So if you are interested, if you can give me your name and contact information, or I can give you the person's name that's organizing volunteers for Lake County, and that way she can help point you in the right direction where she might need some help, which is pretty much everywhere in Lake County. But it's a good question. Anything else?
Do you have booklets here tonight?
I do. I have a lot of booklets. Anyone else? Okay, so thank you, and if you need some more information, handouts, anything, I have those here. Thanks.
Okay, great.
Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, thanks, Sue. Does anybody else want to come up and, yes? Hi.
I'm Peggy Gallagher. I'm the precinct committee person in Ward 4, Precinct Q. And
Nice to meet you.
Thanks. Ward 4 and Ward 6 in Cleveland are having a candidate night. It sounds like maybe one of the first times ever. And I have some literature if you're interested, or if you're in Ward 4 or 6 and want to come on August 1st or August 8th to meet the candidates. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. You want to leave one of those here?
I'll leave one
for us. Okay. Does anybody else have any other information or want to introduce themselves or their group or anything? Jane?
Sure, I mean, I was going to talk as a precinct committee, but I'm Jane Buter Shapiro. I'm precinct committee person for Q here in Shaker Heights. I'm president of the Shaker Heights Democratic Club.
So now you have a face to go with the name.
So right,
That's
so now
fun.
you have a face to go with the name. And it's great to see everybody and lots of new faces. So if you're here in Shaker, check us out too, shakerdems.org on the web. We have our meetings usually every other month on the first Wednesday of the month, but it changes up certain times of year, and sometimes we skip some summer months and then have more meetings in the fall or other times as our programs lead us to. So check us out on our website, and we'd love to see you there.
Great. Thanks, Jane. Okay, anybody else? Yes? It's like everybody has a message. It's just it's so wonderful.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Steiner, and I'm Precinct E. And there's many things. I've been involved with the Democrats ever since I moved here in 1990, a precinct person probably since 92. Sydney Cargyle recruited me. So, but the big things that I've been involved with is with the schools, like the school to prison pipeline, trying to get the special ed program strong. And the other thing, I was lobbying to get restorative justice, which I'd like to see a K through 12 discipline policy that's really about mending, torn relationships, and restorative justice is very powerful. And it's being used in Forest Hills, right next door to where I grew up in Edgewood, Pittsburgh, and it's just reduced suspensions tremendously. And Mike Griffith at the high school piloted it, but he's no longer there, so I don't know the status of that, but that's something.
Ask me.
Oh, good, yeah, so that's something that I feel very strongly about. And then what else do I feel strongly about? The other thing is my friend Brondi Shanker started the ESL classes at the library, and she passed away last year, so I've been running that program. And we have fabulous tutors. So I'm a volunteer, our tutors are volunteers. Greater Cleveland congregation has sent us a lot of them. But like last Tuesday, we had 15 people, students that showed up from all over the world. And so we work in small groups of all different reading levels, and the tutors, it's such a jolly place. And they're very fun stories. So we have a really great time doing that. So that's one thing we're doing for the immigrants, and they really appreciate it. So thank you, and thank you for all being here. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we actually have two, you want to, let me just interrupt this and say that we have, yes, please come up to the mic. And so we have two different major functions here. One is for us to hear from Trevor Elkins, who is running for chair of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. That's a big issue, that's why we're here. So Trevor, if you just want to stand up so we can make eye contact with you, he's here. He's actually going to be a major part of the program. And the other part is for us to get to know each other and the different precinct leaders. So we're going to just take care of that business while we're still alert.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Payne Jones. I'm the Shaker Heights City Leader, which is the equivalent of a ward leader in the city of Cleveland. And sorry I did not get back and let you know I was coming, but I'm here. I am also precinct committee leader of precinct W, but our boundaries have changed, so it's now going to be I. And I just wanted to come meet everyone, introduce myself. I understand that there's some people here who may be interested in becoming precinct committee members. If so, please make sure to, come introduce yourself and let's meet and let's talk.
Great,
All right,
thank you.
looking forward to tonight's program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Okay, and we'll have one more introduction and then we'll get on to the floor. Thank you very much for being here.
I'm Isaac Grieber. I'm the precinct chairman for Precinct K, and I'm glad to see this large crowd here. That's wonderful. I think if you have not read Bonnie Gordon's letter that she wrote, I encourage you to do so, which she expressed what the problems are and the goals and what we should be aware of very, very beautifully. And I'm going to reiterate some of the things that she said. And one of them is that we have to work at the grassroots level, that it's very important for all of us to be involved as much as we possibly can. When we meet for Precinct K, I will be distributing my telephone number and email address, And I want to encourage people in our precinct to call me, give me information. I'd like to have their opinions about the candidates for leadership. I'm looking forward to hearing the candidates for leadership of the party, and I hope to get the opinions of people in my district. I think that the organizers of this are fine. I want to say a couple of personal things about people I think I'd like to thank. One is Bonnie Gordon for doing her wonderful work, and the other is and also Lisa Payne Jones, who's been a wonderful city leader. Personally, I thank her for encouraging me to be a precinct chair and for teaching me the things I should consider in my work in the Central Committee. Thank you very much for your work.
So it sounds like we're the type of people who could spend a lot of time together and really enjoy each other's company. So thank you very much for those introductions. Okay, so now we're going to get on to something which is sort of the program. I'm actually kind of thinking, so I had put together a presentation on the voting patterns in Cuyahoga County. And I think we're probably a group that is very well aware of the patterns as they were in 2012 and what they were in 2016 with respect to how some communities may have supported different candidates in 2016 versus 2012. So I'm just going to put up one or two slides just to emphasize the fact that Cuyahoga County has been a bulk ward of democratic and liberal thinking for a very, very, very long time. And that's who we are as a county. And in that, we have different interpretations of what liberal means and what being a Democrat means. And again, my message, if I would have one message, was that we are much more powerful and much more likely to have an impact if we rally together and stay together under something that we can all design as a tent of our own creation. And I'm actually a numbers person. I'm not really, I'm not going to get emotional. Although I might get emotional. So it's actually pretty interesting, so this is, part of it is about Ohio, and part of it is about Cuyahoga County, and I'm going to be fast because we really do want to hear from Trevor. But, so here's the breakdown. So, as of a month or so ago. So there's about almost 8 million registered voters in Ohio, and this is the breakdown in terms of the party affiliation, which of course could have been a little bit different in 2016 because we had the different primaries and people were jumping ship from the Democratic Party to actually register as a Republican so they could vote against Trump and vote for Kasich. So we knew people who did that. Friends of mine did that. I'm sure they did. It's not, we could talk about them, but not here. Okay, but this is sort of the background, right? And so it's incredible, given this as the background, that Ohio remains a bellwether state because there must be platforms that can be attractive to people to bring them over to the more liberal and democratic side in terms of ideology. But those are what the numbers are. This is the age group. Ohio is actually an aging state. There are more people who are voters over the age of 65, many more, than are the bottom bar is 18 to 24. And so we have it, I believe, in our mandate to go out and find the younger voters and register them, and hopefully register them as Democrats to bring them onto our mission. So there are a couple of things. I don't want to get through the entire thing. I'm actually not going to talk about that. But this is sort of interesting, and this is online. So this is a list of all the different communities and how they voted in the Democratic primary, and then how we all voted in terms of the presidential election. And so there were some communities, especially Lakewood, which was a very strong Bernie Sanders supporter. Many of the other communities were solidly for Hillary Clinton. If you want to look through this with an eye towards not necessarily the voters, but the turnout was actually very, very low, even for the primary. And so again, something which I think is in our best interest is to always remember that we have to go out and beat the bushes to bring people in, whether it's an election.
What is your online reference for this?
For this?
This is online.
This is, do I have a reference? I'll have to find, I think it was the Cleveland.com. I think this was a newspaper. It might show up at the bottom of another reference. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Could you read off the shaker numbers for those of us who can't quite read?
Yes, I will. I will read the shaker numbers, which means I wish I brought my other glasses. So, okay, so for Shaker Heights,
Can
and
you
again.
enlarge it? It's like an eye test.
I got it.
Okay, so it was 54,000.
Yeah, for Clinton, there were 5,400 votes. For Sanders, there were 2,542. Can you guys see that now? La Fuente got 7 votes. And so that made it,
Oops.
So sorry.
It was 67.
It was 67% for Clinton.
67%.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're back in darkness here. Okay, but the point is, but my whole point showing this is that both at the state level and at the county level, there was clear evidence that there were that different candidates were considered by some of us, by other people, that Sanders had a very strong support in Lakewood, and we were, Cuyahoga County, although leaning Democratic, of course, down the line, did have different preferences in different communities, which is all I want to actually say, right? All of us gathered here, okay? That's where I'm going with this. Then there were actually counties in Ohio where Bernie Sanders outperformed Hillary Clinton, which I actually learned today. I didn't even know I didn't know that was possible. And then when we got to the election, that was primary, there were, of course, those counties went towards Trump because of the overwhelming number of Republican voters there. So there were 7 cities in Cuyahoga County that went from being Romney supporters, I remember this, Romney supporters in 2012 to Hillary supporters in 2016, and they were Bay Village, Moreland Hills, Cuyahoga Falls, those communities. And then there were other communities that were Obama supporters in 2012 and then became Trump supporters in 2016, and they were Parma, a couple of other communities. And so the thing that really illustrates is that we don't have to go outside of the state to find people to ask the question, why did you support Obama in 2012 and then support Trump in 2016? Or what was it about Romney that had you lined up in 2012, and what did you see in Hillary as your your candidate of choice in 2016? So Ohio is a microcosm of all the different ways you can slice and dice being either a Republican or being a Democrat. And we're in an excellent position to tap upon that as a resource in terms of figuring out the way forward. That basically is my message. And who needs slides to say that? Okay, so since we can't get to Bonnie's slides, we'll move right to...
No, I just asked. Okay, I want to also say that. Do we need this, or can I just sort of project? We need it? Okay. I just also want to introduce Keith Wilson, who you all met at the back from the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus, Shaker Heights chapter. We've got a lot of people from there here. They're also in contact with Trevor Elkins and I believe endorsing him. They were also co-organizers of this evening. I also want to say, wow, that's okay. I don't need the slides either. We've taken enough time with slides coming on and coming off. The idea for me for this meeting is the one message that I have from Indivisible Shaker is that we only had 14.5%, as Maureen said, we only had 14.5% of Democratic voters voting in the primary last year. That's it. And possibly one of the reasons for that is that we at the base are too anonymous to the party hierarchy. We don't know what they know. They don't know what we think in many cases. And as Isaac said, they want to know. I called most of the precinct leaders here, and they were all agog. You mean I'm going to get to meet constituents here? I'm in. So we have fantastic, involved, as you can see, precinct leaders here who want to know what you think. And if you have the same information that they do, and they are more than willing to share it, I'm sure, then they elect the county Democratic Party chairman, and those are the people who decide who's going to get endorsements. So we can have, by getting active in our precincts, we have an effect on who gets chosen as our candidate. And of course, this is a very important issue now for this year. My slides are going to take us back to the pain of last year, and not only the shocker that got all the attention, but the thing that we saw coming, which was the loss of Ted Strickland to Rob Portman. If that had been different, if that outcome had come out, if that had come out a little bit differently, then Trump Care would be dead. Without Rob Portman, there is no Trump Care. So we have a big influence. We need to take more of it. We can have a big influence. We can decide what direction the country is going in. And if it's not going to work here in Shaker, it's not going to work anywhere. But it is going to work here in Shaker, and that's what this turnout means to me. So we had, I think, all of the precinct leaders now. Are there any other precinct leaders who have not yet introduced themselves? That's what I thought. So let's get on to Trevor, and we are all experiencing this together. The precinct leaders are going to be the one who are going to vote for him or for Chantel Brown. There will be another evening like this where she will speak, but now we're going to know what they know, so we can let them know. And after Trevor is done, then we'll all have time to meet our precinct leaders. If your precinct leader is not here today, then I will be in the back with my computer. I will look up your precinct leader for you, and I will give you their phone number. Trevor Elkins.
So thank you for having the event this evening, Maureen and Bonnie, especially for your work putting this together. I'm going to just introduce myself quickly, give you a little bit about my history, and then I think there's a series of prepared questions that will really give you a flavor for how I view the future of the Cowgill County Democratic Party. Because in my view, in my opinion, and Bonnie touched on this, the future of the United States rests on Cowgill County. It's a big, big load for us to carry, but we have that ability and that capacity. So to give you a little bit about myself, I'm the mayor of Newburgh Heights in my second term. Prior to that, I had about 10 years experience in municipal finance. I was the finance director and council. So I've been involved in politics dating back to the 90s when I won my first elected office at the age of 20 in a school board in a district in upstate New York. I'm originally from the Finger Lakes area. So quick history. I, as I mentioned, grew up in New York. My parents divorced at a young age, and I was raised in upstate near Rochester, between Rochester and Syracuse. For any of you that are familiar with the Mormon religion, I was actually raised in the birthplace of the Mormon religion, which is Palmyra, New York, almost directly between Rochester. A ton of history, it's fantastic. I'm not Mormon, but not that matters. That's just where I was raised. So grew up. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. We were actually raised Catholic, as Catholics, and almost none of us practice anymore. So that's my religion, if that matters. But we 4 brothers and 4 sisters. By about the age of 16, my biological father went to prison. He's a 2-time felon, and that really kind of shaped a lot of my experience. My mother really is kind of the hero of our family, so a lot of my guiding principles and theories are based around my mother and how she raised such a large family. My stepdad moved on with his life at about the same time, roughly around the age of 17. My mother moved back to Cleveland for employment reasons, and I stayed in New York. And I finished my high school. It's kind of a unique finish, but I finished working third shift in a factory. My guidance counselors and my greater school community friends and whatnot, made sure I had a place to live, and they had adjusted my schedule. So my view of government was really shaped in that era, where I believe government and neighborhoods and communities can be the solution to our problems as society. I was very fortunate that there was a network of school officials, distant family and friends there to provide a structure. Shortly after that, I mentioned I got involved in politics. My first election was able to vote in was 1992. In the Democratic primary, I voted for Jerry Brown. So I am a liberal, and I wear that with kind of a badge of honor. I'm proud to be a liberal. People, they like to throw it around at us like it's a bad word. I'm like, well, at least we're the ones thinking. So that's a brief history of my childhood, how I got started. Went to college. My degree is actually I'm actually 4 classes short of my degree. I'm finishing my degree as I can through Ursuline, but I'm basically done, and it's in humanities with a concentration on religious studies. I think that that's provided me a real broad spectrum of how we've kind of come to where we are today as a society. Married, and I have 3 beautiful daughters, twins, so I just did it the easy way. So I have twins that are 10 and a 3-year-old, and as I mentioned, got involved in local politics here in Cleveland when I moved here in 1995. What ended up being the Dennis Kucinich's New Hampshire State Political Director. So I ran a presidential campaign in the state of New Hampshire, which, if any of you know anything about politics in New Hampshire, it's kind of the Super Bowl of politics. I mean, it really is pretty intense. Even for a candidacy or a campaign that is considered, or was considered at the time, to kind of be kind of fringy. It's amazing. So you learn a lot about really grassroots activism. You attend a lot of meetings like this, and you get to sit in a room where there's 10 people just literally grilling United States senators and Congress people and governors to find out what they think. And this goes back to a point that was made that's kind of where we need to take the party. We need to figure out what are our constituents thinking, and how do we integrate that with the things that I do as a city leader. I'm the city leader for Independence, Newburgh Heights, Valley View, Cobb Heights, and Brooklyn Heights. And Ms. Jones does for here at Shaker. So how do we engage the activism that's occurring across this country with the structure and the apparatus of the party? So with that, there's a series of questions that I was asked, so we'll move on, I guess, directly to those. But that's kind of my life history, if you will.
Okay, great, thank you very much. So the questions were developed by people who are part of the East Side Progressive Action, coalition. And we represent lots of different communities, and several people are in this room who are part of that group, and feel free to join us too. Okay, so we had a bunch of questions, and some of them are pretty broad. And then what we're going to do is then have everybody who has a question for Trevor that we haven't touched upon, you too will have questions. You can ask him questions. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so we had. Okay, so this is kind of touches upon what you just said. So we are all here because there is energy and institutional memory in the grassroots groups and the established party organizations. And so how will we bring those together, and what are your thoughts about this?
So the next chair, and a little bit about the Chicago Democratic Party, and many of you have watched the history unfold over the last 10 years or so. Stuart Garson has done a pretty good job of restoring integrity to the party. We have a structure in place now that has been in place for a while, but you know, we went through a bump through the era of Jimmy DeMora and Frank Russo, and it really damaged our brand locally. And I think if anybody denies that, they're not living in reality. I mean, the truth is a lot of times you tell somebody that's not involved in county politics that you're a Democrat and you're involved in the county party. Just read the comments below the comment section in any Cleveland.com article, and you mention Democrat and you're automatically corrupt because we had a party chairman that was. So Stuart Garson has done a good job of kind of restoring that integrity and that process, and utilizing the rules that are in place to make sure that there's kind of no shenanigans occurring. And he's also done a very good job of raising money for the party. However, what we need to do is give our city leaders and our precinct leaders more support at the very basic foundational organizing level. And this gets back to the comment about where and why I think the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party can lift not just this county, but the state and the nation on its back and carry Democrats across the country to victory and to wins. Not just because they're Democrats, but because they have a set of principles and values that really comport with most of America. If you take the D and the R off of the issue, most people tend to agree with the issues that we agree with. So how do we get that support? I have a website. I brought some literature. It's a quick card. It's got my website on it. I'll leave some here. Take that, but it's www.trevorelkins.org. It's a 5-step plan. One of those key plans is we need to hire what I consider a political field director. This person's job is to work directly with Ms. Jones, myself, the Parma ward leader, all the city leader, all the ward leaders in Cleveland, so that we have a consistent message, but we're also organizing our neighborhoods. We just by turning the lights on will win Cuyahoga County by 215,000 votes. Every presidential election, guaranteed. We won in 2008 and 2012 with President Obama because they really put in and helped us organize. They put in a structure that we didn't quite see with I wish it was President Clinton, with Hillary Clinton as president. So we need to create that structure here for ourselves, because if we can win elections with 250 or 260,000 votes, we carry the state. We win the state every single election. We'll run the table. That will mean that we'll control the apportionment boards, we can eliminate gerrymandering, and we can have things happen in the state house that reflect our values. So that person, so the hiring of the political director their job will be to work with the city and ward leaders, whose job will to be help the precinct captains, the precinct chair people that are elected every 4 years, get into the neighborhoods and find the people, the activists that want to engage in the Democratic Party process, because we're all trying to do the same thing, but we're running different paths to accomplish that. So we have to find out where we agree on issues, and this political field director, I believe, will have a big part and a big capacity for doing that.
Okay. So another question was, Cuyahoga County is itself a very, very diverse county, and so although I'm sure that we're not all on the same page with respect to what the timeline of your candidacy would be, so do you have plans to visit all parts of Cuyahoga County, including all of the minority parts and cities of the county?
So the answer is I've already spent a lot of time throughout the county, and have been really campaigning and working to learn more about our community, our greater Cleveland community, the county, for probably 2 years now, and I've been from Westlake to Sugar Falls already. Have I been to every community? No, but it is my goal to get to as many locations that'll have me. I spend a lot of time attending fundraisers and events and organizing meetings and ward clubs. There's a gnat up here. So the answer is yes. I mean, I'm doing my best to get to every community that I can get to, and I would say that I've already easily been to 2/3 of the county.
Okay. So another question was with respect to the history that you were talking about, and how there has perhaps been disenfranchisement and lack of trust with respect to the organization that exists. So how do you propose to bring people back, how to bring trust back into the Democratic Party?
So it's not an us versus them equation. If you want a Democratic Party that's reflective of the values of you as an activist, we need you to be active. We need you to be involved. We need you to run. We need you to be precinct people. And I get it. The challenge, of course, is well, it's kind of an antiquated system. It's cumbersome. It's Byzantine. I don't feel enfranchised. All those things seem to be true, but politics is not an instant gratification process. It's a long. The Republicans have been doing what they're doing with the school boards, the city councils, the grassroots organizing. Been doing this now since the early '80s. Which is why they control 34, I just heard today, 34 or 35 of the governorships are controlled by Republicans. Because somewhere along the way, someone started out on the school board, they started out at the precinct level, organizing their neighborhoods, organizing their school boards, and advancing legislation that sounded great, but we all know what the impact of that. So what we have to do to kind of end that disenfranchisement is have meetings like this where we're engaging the activist community. We're giving voice to people that may not want to be part of the official apparatus, but want to have an impact and some say in that. And doing that through, like the Democratic Party has a whole host of affinity groups, the Women's Caucus, Cindy Dempsey's here, the Women's Caucus, the Young Black Democrats, the Young Democrats, the Stonewall Democrats, it's a gay and lesbian organization. So we have a whole host of outlets to provide voice and influence on the official Democratic Party apparatus, and that's something that my candidacy does. And if you, again, go to my 5-point plan, one of those things is making sure the affinity groups of the Democratic Party has some kind of voice in the conversation. They may not have a formal official voice because our bylaws don't offer that, which certainly could be changed, but make sure they have some voice, so there's a buy-in in the front. The last thing that we want to have happen is what happened essentially with Ted Strickland, who is a nice guy. He's a good guy, and he had a successful campaign as governor, and he was a congressperson, but there was a sense that his endorsement was rammed through without there really being any engagement of the people that were going to do the work for him. So the question, what we don't want to have happen is a candidate get endorsed. We got to get away from the, listen, we, the Democratic Party, have picked a candidate. Now you have to support him and you have to turn out the vote for him, because as bad as our candidate might be, theirs is worse. We got to get away from the lesser of two evils. Now I'm not suggesting that that all of our endorsements are of that nature, because they're not. Because by and large, it's a pretty open, transparent process, even though we get beat up for it sometimes. But we got to have a way of engaging more voices in that process on the front end. So I think that's how we rebuild trust.